Hi, Bobby Thompson here with Crochet Guru, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet this fan stitch baby blanket. The materials you'll need for this blanket: some Hometown USA yarn, which is a Lion brand yarn, and I use color Charlotte Blue and New York White. You will need a size M13 crochet hook, and this is also called a 9mm hook, a yarn needle, a needle and some thread. Now that's optional, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that later. And of course, don't forget your scissors. To find this pattern plus more details about this blanket, go to the description box below, and there you will find a link to the pattern, some information on the yarn and hook that I used, and some other useful information about this blanket. Starting with our foundation chain with color A, or Charlotte Blue, we're going to chain 69. So the first thing we do is create a slip knot, and now we're going to chain 69. Now I'll chain slowly at first, and then I'll speed up the track to finish my chain. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, I'm just going to chain slowly, and then in a second I'll speed up the track. So if you need to pause the video to finish up this chain, now is a good time to do that. Okay, so I'm going to let you take a look at the pattern for row 1. And I understand that this is a lot to absorb if you don't read patterns. This is probably pretty confusing. But one of my main goals for my videos is to help you understand how to read patterns. So in order to help you learn how to do this, I'm going to try and break this pattern down and go through it with you step by step. Now if you don't care about reading patterns, that's fine too. Just ignore the written instructions and follow along at your own pace. Okay, so again, I'm going to break this pattern up for you, and the first thing we're going to do is place a double crochet into the third chain from our hook. So go ahead and count 3 chains from your hook. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to yarn over our hook, and then insert that hook into the third chain. Yarn over the hook again and pull the yarn through the chain, and there should be 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, and there should be 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over the hook and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook, and there's your first double crochet. Now I do explain the pattern and the stitches pretty slowly in the beginning of my videos, so if this is too slow for you, don't worry, because I'll go faster as we move on. And the 3 chains that we skipped is now considered our turning chain, or you can just consider it another double crochet. Okay, so moving on, we're going to skip 2 chains. So there's 1 and 2. And now we're going to single crochet into that third chain. So go ahead and insert your hook into the third chain, yarn over, bring the yarn through the chain. There should be 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on your hook. And so there's your first single crochet. Now we're going to skip 2 chains again, and into the next chain we're going to crochet a fan stitch. Now a fan stitch can be crocheted in different ways, and each designer will use the fan stitch differently in their patterns. So that's why most patterns have a stitch definition or explanation guide. So for my fan stitch definition, we're going to place 3 double crochets, then we're going to be chaining 1, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets into the same stitch or chain. So again, we've skipped 2 chains, and now we're going to place a fan stitch into that next chain. So in this next chain, we're going to place 3 double crochets, then we're going to chain 1, and then place 3 more double crochets. So here's our first double crochet. And there's our second. Remember, that's in the same chain. And there's our third. And now we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets into the same chain. So there's 1, and there's 2, and that's 3. And that's what our fan stitch is going to look like. Okay, so moving on, we're going to skip another 2 chains, and we're going to place a single crochet into the next chain. So insert your hook into that next chain, and go ahead and place 1 single crochet. Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed, but we've just completed everything that's written in the parentheses. Now, if you're learning how to read a pattern, everything that is written in these parentheses will be repeated until the end of the row. Okay, so now that we're just going to be repeating everything, I'm going to move a little bit faster. So again, we're going to skip 2 chains and then place a fan stitch into the next chain. So place the first 3 double crochets into that next chain. So there's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and there's 3. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets into the same chain. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so skip 2 chains again, and into the next chain we're going to place 1 single crochet. And then we're going to skip another 2 chains and place another fan stitch. So there's 1 double crochet, there's 2, and 3, and then we're going to chain 1. I'm going to place another 3 double crochets into the same chain. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so again, we're going to skip 2 more chains and we're going to place another single crochet. This is what your blanket should be looking like so far. And then I'm only going to go over this one more time with you on this row since we're just going to be repeating the same pattern. So again, we're going to skip the 2 chains and then place a fan stitch. So there's 1, and then there's 2, and 3 double crochets. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to enter another 3 double crochets into the same chain. So there's 1, 2, and there's 3, and then we're going to skip another 2 chains, and then place our single crochet again. Okay, so I'm going to let you finish this row on your own. However, don't crochet into the last 3 chains. So pause the video now and finish off this row, and I'll meet you back here to show you what we're going to do in those last 3 chains. Okay, so to end this row, we're going to place 2 double crochets into the last chain. So again, we're going to skip 2 chains, and then in that very last chain, we're going to place 2 double crochets. So there's 1 double crochet, and then your last double crochet for that row. Okay, so before moving on to the next row, make sure you have 10 fan stitches. Okay, so go ahead and take a look at row 2, and it will be different from row 1, but again, we're going to break it down and take it step by step. Starting on row 2, we're going to attach color B or New York white. And to do this, we're not going to fasten off the last color. Instead, take your scissors and cut the blue yarn, leaving about 5 inches, because we're going to go back and weave this strand in later. Now take the new color and fold it in half, and place the fold onto the hook and pull the new color through the loop on your hook. Tighten the new strand into place by pulling on the blue yarn. Now we're going to chain 1, and then turn our work around. And then we're going to single crochet into the very first double crochet, and so that's your very first stitch on this row. So place the first single crochet into that first stitch. Okay, so now we're going to skip the next double crochet. We're not going to work into that. We're actually going to work into the next single crochet. And in that single crochet, we're going to place a fan stitch. So there's 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and 3, all into the same stitch. And we're going to chain 1, and we're going to place 3 more double crochets into that same stitch. So again, there's 1, and there's 2, and there's 3 double crochets. Okay, now we're going to single crochet into the chain 1 space of the fan. So first locate that chain 1 space on the fan, which is right here. So go ahead and insert your hook into that chain 1 space, and then work 1 single crochet. Now we're going to place a fan stitch into the next single crochet. So after your fan, remember we have a single crochet, which is right there, and that's where we're going to place our next fan stitch. So again, we're going to start this stitch by placing 3 double crochets into that single crochet. So there's 1, and there's 2 double crochets, and there's 3. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets into that single crochet. So there's 1, and there's 2, and there's 3. Before we move on, go ahead and look at this pattern that we'll be repeating across this row. Okay, so again we'll be single crocheting into the chain 1 space of the fan. So we can insert your hook into that top chain 1 space of the fan, and then we're going to single crochet. And now we're going to place a fan stitch into the single crochet. So again, after the fan stitch, locate that single crochet. So there's 1, and there's 2, and there's 3, and then we're going to chain 1, and then place another 3 double crochets into that same stitch. So there again, there's 1 double crochet, so there's 2, and then 3. Okay, so I'm going to go through this with you one more time, and then I'll let you finish up this row on your own. Okay, so locate that chain 1 space on top of the fan stitch, insert your hook, and make a single crochet. Now locate your next single crochet, and we're going to place a fan stitch into that next single crochet. So there's your first double crochet, then there's your second double crochet, your third, and we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to do 3 more double crochets into that same stitch. So again, there's 1 double crochet, and there's 2, and then there's 3. Alright, so I'm going to let you finish up this row on your own, but don't finish up the last stitch. So go ahead and pause the video now, and then I'll meet you back here to show you what we'll do for that last stitch. To finish this row, we're going to place a single crochet into the top of the turning chain. So locate the very last stitch on row 1, and then insert your hook into that stitch, and place 1 single crochet. And that is how we end the second row. Now before we move on to row 3, make sure you have 11 fan stitches. Go ahead and take a look at round 3, and again we're just going to break this up and take this slowly and go step by step. Okay, so starting on row 3, we're going to attach color A, and this is our Charlotte Blue. And again, we're not going to fasten off our last color. Instead, we're going to take our scissors and cut the white yarn, leaving about 5 inches. Now we want to leave at least 5 inches of yarn because later we'll go back and weave that yarn in. Now we need to attach color A by folding the yarn strand and placing the fold on the hook, and then we pull the new color through the loop on our hook. Tighten the yarn strand into place by pulling on the white strand of yarn, and now we're going to chain 2. So there's 1 and 2. Now we're going to turn our work around and then double crochet into the same space as our chain 2. Okay, so just locate that first stitch and place a double crochet. Now we're going to single crochet into the chain 1 space on top of the fan. Now we're going to place a fan stitch into the next single crochet. So there's 1 double crochet, and here's 2 double crochets, and there's 3, and then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets into that same stitch. So again, there's 1 double crochet, and then there's 2, and then 3. So here's the pattern that we just did, and we're going to keep repeating this until the end of the row. Okay, so before we move on, remember that we're just working into the chain 1 spaces on top of the fans and the single crochet spaces. So place your single crochet on top of the fan, and now place your fan stitch into that single crochet. So there's 1 double crochet, and then 2, and then 3, and then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to place 3 more double crochets into that same space. So there's 2, and there's 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and let you finish up this row, since we're just basically doing the same thing over and over again, and then I'll meet you back here to show you what we're going to do in the last stitch. To end this row, we're going to place 2 double crochets into the last single crochet. So locate the very last stitch in the second row and place 2 double crochets. So there's 1, and then 2 double crochets. For rows 4 through 41, we're going to repeat row 2 for all of the even numbered rows, and then we're going to repeat row 3 for all of the odd numbered rows. So basically, this just means that you're going to repeat row 2 and row 3 until you get to the end of the blanket. Now, because all of the rows are a repeat of what we've already done, I'm going to let you finish rows 4 through 41 on your own, and then I'll meet you back here to show you how to finish the blanket and how to do the border. So if you get confused while crocheting on your own, just rewind the video and rewatch rows 2 and rows 3, and I will meet you back here to show you how to end row 41. Okay, so to end row 41, we're going to end with 2 double crochets in the last single crochet of row 40. So there's your first double crochet, and there's your second. Before moving on to the border, we're going to fasten this off and then weave in our loose yarn ends. Okay, so go ahead and grab your scissors and cut the yarn, leaving about 5 inches for weaving, and then pull the tail yarn in through the loop on your hook. Now that we're finished with the main blanket, we're going to have all of these loose yarn ends, so now we're going to weave those in with a yarn needle. The best way to do this is to weave in and out of the same color of stitches, and I would go back and forth a few times to make sure it's really secure. Again, just remember to weave your yarn strands into the same color of stitch. If you feel this isn't enough and you find that you're still having problems with the yarn ends sticking out, or maybe you're going to be selling these blankets and you really want to make sure these ends are secure, then another option is to take a sewing needle and some thread that is the same color as your yarn and stitch over the top of those tail ends. Go ahead and take a look at the pattern for the border of the blanket, and this looks like a lot, but again I'm going to break this pattern down as we crochet the border together. Starting on our border, we're going to attach color B to the end of row 41. So go ahead and make your slip knot, and then we're going to attach the slip knot to the end of the last row. Place the slip knot into the hook, and then pull the slip knot through the loop on your hook. Now chain 1. After you chain 1, go ahead and turn your work around, and now we're going to double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there's 1 double crochet, and in the next stitch we're going to place another double crochet. So there's 2, and then in the next stitch go ahead and place your 3rd double crochet. Now we're going to single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 single crochet, and then there's 2. Now we're going to slip stitch into that chain 1 space. So place your hook into the chain 1 space, yarn over, and pull the yarn through the loop on your hook. Now we're going to single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So locate your next stitch and place that single crochet. So there's your first single crochet and there's your second. Looking back at our pattern, we just completed everything in the parentheses. Now we need to do everything in the parentheses 9 more times. Okay, so we'll be double crocheting into the next 3 stitches. So go ahead and place your first double crochet into that next stitch. So there's 1, there's 2 double crochets, and there's 3. Now in the next 2 stitches, we're going to be placing a single crochet. So there's your first single crochet, and there's your second. Okay, so now locate that chain 1 space on top of that fan stitch, and that's where we're going to be placing our slip stitch. So there's your slip stitch, and now we're going to be placing 2 more single crochets into the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2. Okay, so now we're going to repeat everything that we just did, and we're going to repeat that 8 more times. So in the next 3 stitches, we're going to place a double crochet. So there's 1 double crochet, and there's 2, and there's 3. Okay, now in the next 2 stitches, again, we're going to place 1 single crochet. So there's 1 single crochet, and there's 2. Now remember, in that chain 1 space of the fan stitch, we're going to place a slip stitch. So there's your slip stitch, and then we're going to end with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 single crochet and 2. Now I'm going to let you finish this side of the blanket on your own. And remember, we just need to repeat what's in the parentheses 7 more times before we move on to the next side of the blanket. Okay, so before moving on, you'll notice that we have 3 stitches left. So to finish this side of the blanket, we're going to place a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So there's your first double crochet, and there's your second. Now in the last stitch, we're going to place 2 double crochets. So there's your first double crochet, and there's your second. Now for this side of the border, you should have 84 stitches. This is the pattern for the remaining sides of the blanket, and again, I'm just going to break this down for you. Now that we're done with this side of the blanket's border, go ahead and flip your blanket lengthwise. Working on the border on the length of the blanket is a little more challenging. The stitches are harder to see, and it can be hard to push your hook through the stitches. So just do the best you can and realize that this side of the blanket doesn't have to be perfect. The first thing we're going to do on this side of the blanket is place 3 double crochets into the first corner. So these stitches are going to be a little harder to decipher, so just do the best you can. So again, in this first corner, we're going to place 3 double crochets. So there's 1, there's 2, and 3 double crochets. So now we're going to double crochet into the next 78 stitches, and I'm going to show you the best way to do that. Into this first blue section, we're going to place 1 double crochet. And then into the next white section, we're going to place 1 double crochet. Now for the next 76 stitches, we're going to place 4 double crochets into each blue and white section. So in this blue and white section, there's going to be 4 double crochets. And then into each of the next following blue and white sections, we're going to place 4 double crochets. So I'm going to go over this a few times with you, and then I'll let you finish this side of the blanket on your own. So again, we're going to place 4 double crochets into this blue and white section. So there's 1 double crochet. And again, it's going to be a little bit harder to get your hook through these stitches because it's on the side of your blanket, so just do the best you can. And there's 2 double crochets. And there's 3, and I'm going to place that into the same stitch just because that's going to be the easiest. And then 1 more double crochet into that blue and white section. Now moving on to the next blue and white section, we're going to place another 4 double crochets. So there's your first double crochet, and there's 2, and then there's 3, Then finishing up on the white section, there's going to be 4. Okay, so I'm going to do one more blue and white section with you. This is a little bit harder to get your hook through, so again, just have to do the best that you can. So there's 1 double crochet, there's 2, and there's 3. And in that white section, I'm going to place my 4th. Okay, so go ahead and finish up this side of the blanket, and then I'll meet you back here to show you how we're going to do the corner. So if you need to, now would be a good time to pause the video. Okay, so when you finish this side of the blanket, we're still going to have our corner left. So we're going to place 3 double crochets into that corner. So there's your first double crochet, there's 2, and there's 3. Now to make sure that your stitches are correct, go back and make sure you have 84 double crochets on this side of the blanket. To continue on with this border, turn your blanket so that we'll be working alongside the bottom section of the blanket. Now we're going to repeat the same pattern that we just did. So in this first corner, I'm going to place 3 double crochets. So there's our first double crochet, and there's our second double crochet, and there's our third double crochet. Now we're going to place 1 double crochet in each of the next 78 stitches. Now the best way to place these 78 stitches is to crochet 8 stitches into the single crochet and fan stitch section. I'm going to help you understand this a little better by showing you the fan stitch and single crochet sections first, and then we'll place 8 double crochets into each of those sections. So this is a single crochet and fan stitch section, and this is a single crochet and fan stitch section right here, and this is your single crochet and fan stitch section as well. So we're going to place 8 double crochets into each of those sections. So into this first section, we're going to place 8 double crochets. So there's 1, and there's 2, and there's 3, there's 4, and there's 5. And notice I'm double crocheting in some of the same stitches, so I'm just kind of doing what's easiest. So there's 7, and there's 8 double crochets. So there's your first 8, and now we'll move on to the next single crochet and fan stitch section, and we'll place another 8 double crochets. So there's 1, and 2, and there's 3, and there's 4, and notice I'm just going into some of the same stitches, and this will be 5, 6, there's 7, and 8. Okay, go ahead and finish up this side of the blanket, and remember to keep placing 8 double crochets into each section. So pause the video now to catch up, and I will meet you back here to do the next corner of the blanket. When you get to the corner of the blanket, you might have a big portion of the corner left like I do now, but don't worry, just place your 3 double crochets like usual and it should work out just fine. So there's your first double crochet, and there's your second double crochet, and there's your third double crochet. Now I do have a little bit of a corner left, but don't worry about that because we'll just work around it and it should come out just fine. Okay, so working on the length side of the blanket, we're just going to repeat everything we did one more time. So again, in that first corner, we're going to place 3 double crochets. So there's your first double crochet, and there's your second, And there's your third. Now in this first blue and white section, we're going to place 2 double crochets. So there's 1 and 2. Now into the next blue and white sections, we're going to place 4 double crochets into each of those. So again, there's another blue and white section, and there's another blue and white section. We're going to place 4 double crochets into each of those sections. So there's 1 double crochet, and there's 2, and there's 3, and 4. Now moving on to the next section, we'll place another 4 double crochets. So there's 1, and 2, and there's 3, and 4. Okay, so I'm going to let you finish up the next 66 double crochets, and then I'll meet you back here to finish up that last corner. To finish up round 1, we're just going to place 3 double crochets into this last corner. So there's your first double crochet, and there's 2, and then 3. Now that we're done with round 1, make sure you have a total of 84 stitches on each side of the blanket, and that makes a total of 336 stitches. Take a look at the beginning instructions for round 2 of the border. And again, I'm going to break these instructions up and take it step by step with you. To start the new round, we're going to slip stitch into the beginning stitch. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull the loop through the stitch and the loop on your hook. Now go ahead and chain 2. So there's 1 and 2 chains. Now we're going to double crochet into the next 2 stitches, and remember, we're not going to double crochet in that first stitch where our chain is. So skipping that first stitch, place your first double crochet into the next stitch. So there's your first double crochet, and then into the next stitch over, there's 2. Now we're going to place a half double crochet. To half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over again and pull through the stitch. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and then pull the yarn through all 3 loops on your hook. Place a single crochet into the next stitch, and now we're going to place a slip stitch into the next stitch. So insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull the yarn through the stitch and the loop on your hook. Before we move on, I want to show you the instructions that are written in the parentheses again. And I'm showing you this so that you'll remember that everything in the parentheses will be repeated 9 times. Beginning this new section of stitches, we will first place a slip stitch into the next stitch. Now we're going to place a single crochet into the next stitch. Place a half double crochet into the next stitch. And a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 double crochet and 2 in the next stitch over. Now place a half double crochet into the next stitch. There's your half double crochet. And now place a single crochet into the next stitch. Now to end this sequence of stitches, we're going to place a slip stitch into the next stitch. So we need to repeat that series of stitches 9 more times, and I'm going to go over this one more time with you so that you can get that sequence down. So starting over on that sequence of stitches, we're going to start with a slip stitch, and in the next stitch over, we're going to single crochet. Now place a half double crochet into the next stitch. And now we're going to place 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So there's your first double crochet, and there's your second. Place a half double crochet into the next stitch, and in the next stitch place a single crochet. Now place a slip stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to let you repeat that sequence of stitches 7 more times on your own. So if you get stuck or forget the sequence of stitches, rewind and follow this video. And I will meet you back here to show you what we'll do next. Okay, so continuing round 2, I realize this looks like a lot, but this is a pretty common type of pattern for a border on a blanket. But don't worry, we'll just break it down again and go through it slowly. Okay, so moving on with this pattern, you should still have quite a few corner stitches left. So let's start by finishing this corner. So in this next stitch, place a slip stitch, and now in the next stitch, place a single crochet. In the next stitch, place a half double crochet. Now we're going to double crochet into the next 6 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then working around your corner, we're going to place 4, and there's 5, and then 6 double crochets. Now in the next stitch, we're going to place a half double crochet, and in the next stitch, we're going to place a single crochet. Now to end this corner, we're going to place a slip stitch. I want you to take a look at everything in the parentheses again, and notice that these stitches are the same sequence of stitches that we just did on the last side of the blanket. So because we've already done this, I'm going to go through this series of stitches with you one more time, and then I'm going to let you repeat this sequence 8 more times on your own. So slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, and now half double crochet into the next stitch. Now we're going to double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So there's 1, and there's 2, and now we're going to half double crochet into the next stitch. Single crochet into the next stitch, and to end that sequence of stitches, we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Okay, so go ahead and finish this series of stitches 8 more times, and then I'll be back to show you how to do the next corner. Before we finish the rest of this blanket, I want to backtrack and show you these written instructions again, because I want to talk to you about the double star or asterisk symbol. Now you'll notice that I have 2 asterisk symbols at the beginning and at the end of this section of the pattern. And those asterisks or stars are there to tell you that you will need to repeat this entire section of the pattern a total of 3 times. Now remember, we have already worked this section of the pattern once, and if you look at the double asterisk symbols at the end of the pattern, you'll notice that it's telling us that this pattern needs to be worked again 2 more times. Okay, so continuing with round 2, and to finish off this corner, we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now we're going to single crochet into the next stitch, and then half double crochet into the next stitch. And now we're going to double crochet into the next 6 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 double crochets. Now we're going to half double crochet into the next stitch, and then single crochet into the next stitch, and then slip stitch into that next stitch. Now that ends the corner, and now we're going to start the pattern that's in the parentheses. So we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now we're going to single crochet into the next stitch, and then half double crochet into the next, and then place 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2, and then we're going to half double crochet into the next stitch, and then single crochet into the next, and then slip stitch. Okay, so I'm going to let you work that series of stitches 8 more times, and then I'll be back to work with you on the next corner of the blanket. Okay, so moving on to the next corner, we're going to do it exactly how we've done all the other corners. We're going to start with a slip stitch, and then we're going to single crochet, and then half double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet over the next 6 stitches. So there's 1 double crochet, 2, there's 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now in the next stitch we're going to half double crochet, and in the next stitch we're going to single crochet, and then we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, and that will end the corner. Now we're going to start on that series of stitches that are in the parentheses, and we're going to start with a slip stitch. Now place a single crochet into the next stitch, and a half into the next, and a double into the next stitch, a double into the next, and then a half double crochet into the next stitch, a single crochet into the next stitch, and then in the next stitch we're going to place a slip stitch, and that will end that series of stitches. Okay, so again I'm going to let you finish that series of stitches 8 more times, and if you need help go ahead and rewind this video, and I will meet you back here to finish up that last corner. Okay, so for the last corner we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet into the next, half double crochet into the next, and then double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And then we're going to end by slip stitching into the beginning stitch. Okay, so to end this last corner we're going to start with a slip stitch, and in the next stitch we're going to single crochet, in the next stitch we're going to half double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there's 1 double crochet, and there's 2, and there's your last double crochet, and then we're going to slip stitch into the beginning stitch of round 2. Now to finish this off, cut your yarn leaving about 5 inches, and then pull that loose strand of yarn through that loop on your hook, and then tighten it into place. Okay, so our last round you should have a total of 336 double crochets. Okay, so grab your yarn needle and weave those loose yarn ends into place, and just weave in and out of those stitches. And then remember that you can still take a yarn needle and some thread and weave over the yarn strands to make them more secure. Now that we're finished, I hope you enjoyed making this baby blanket, and if you like my videos, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.